What is up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Dre's Thoughts. This is where we review 3 articles and make some conclusions and some relations to the real world and what the article means. If that sounds like your cup of tea, feel free to hit the sub button below and also drop a like on the video. And if you want to see more content like that, that's going to definitely keep you updated. Let's get into it. So the first article here is that in Canada, their elections are coming up, the federal elections, and they're going to be coming up at the end of this year, Q4. And a statement was made that was pretty interesting, and it said that don't make election about immigration, corporate Canada tells political leaders. Now, we know that immigration is a big issue throughout a lot of the world. We know in Europe, there's a crisis in France, people are protesting it straight on. In Canada, it's actually a very significant issue because the housing market here is unstable. It's very high. Citizens cannot buy houses. The young generation that are emerging cannot even consider affording a house because the average home starts at about $600,000, and the wages have been stagnant in relation to that. So people are a lot of course, people that are against high house prices are saying that immigrants are the problem. That there's a lot of rich immigrants that we have to compete with the hardworking citizens, and they come in and they don't necessarily work. They might even just invest the money into Canada, into the real estate, and not even really live there. And that's a really big problem because housing shouldn't be treated as a commodity if you think about it philosophically. But of course, there's both sides of the spectrum because real estate agents here are, of course, for it. So that's one aspect of it. But that was like one part of it. But the reason the new candidates are going to challenge this issue is because it does bring a lot to the table. Because challenging immigration and addressing it to a large chunk of the population, there's going to be a split vote even then, because there's people that have money in real estate that want it to keep going up, and there's people that want to go into real estate and they want it to go down because they'll never be able to afford it. So there's two sides of the spectrum, and of course you can be seen how both two parties, for example, liberals, I think, would want to keep the progress going of keeping house prices up. However, it does come down to it does a lot come down to the Bank of Canada, which lowers and higher the interest rate. But that's another story. We're going to leave that to another story. But yeah, there's some quotes from this are, we are 10 years away from a true demographic pressure point. Hunter said during a meeting with the reporters on Thursday, what I've said to the leaders of the political parties on this issue is please do all you can to resist making this election about immigration. This is as bluntly as I can say it to them. The message from corporate Canada comes at a time when public and political debate has focused on immigration. Yes, we know about that. Canada has been ratcheting up its immigration numbers and its plan to welcome more. Yes, we've heard about it. They're planning on welcoming 1 million within like 2 years or 3 years. And yeah, here's the quote. Earlier this week, the Bank of Canada noted economic importance of immigration in its monetary policy. Now, this, I completely disagree with this because the motivation on domestic development reproduction should be prioritized among the leaders, the economic leaders, the financial leaders, the political leaders. They should prioritize domestic reproduction and development. Relying on immigration so much is not necessarily the future of the world. Just because it is a good trend, it's not necessarily going to make a healthy nation in the future. Canada has already come out and said it's the first post-national nation. As vague of a term as that is, it means that it doesn't really have, it's giving up its identity, it's becoming a post-national. It's not going to be national, it's just going to be post, it's past that. The implications of that are, of course, very serious. It's a very big idea that they're trying to get across, and it's one of the only nations, I'm pretty sure it might be the only nation at this point that did it. But I don't think that's going to be the answer because there's simply, a healthy democracy grows from within. There's a healthy reproduction rate that has to reproduce the citizens. We don't have that, and we rely on immigration to fulfill that number. And these people come in; they don't bring any culture here. They don't bring a culture that can be sustained throughout the whole population. They bring their culture, and it becomes very segregated upon just how much connection groups have amongst each other. So I definitely think that they should motivate domestic development as prioritized, and relying so much on external factors it's very unstable. And I honestly think that there's been a lot of talk about recession, of course, but we'll see where that ends up. All right. Moving on to the next story of the day. On the other hand, the U.S. economy is actually going up. It's doing great. U.S. economy grows by 3.2% in the first quarter, topping expectations. So first quarter gross domestic product expanded 3.2%. Economists polled Dow Jones expect the U.S. economy increase by 2.5%. So it beat expectations. That is very good, of course, for the U.S. and a lot of its trading partners. First quarter gross domestic product expanded 3.2%. The upside beat was held by net trade, exports, and blah, blah, blah. Exports rose 3.7% in the first quarter, while imports decreased 3.7%. Friday's data was the first to look at how the economy fared during the longest government shutdown in history. So despite all the obstacles that the U.S. economy has faced and everything that's been going forward, I'm very surprised that it's actually still doing as well as it is. And look how many tariffs they've been putting. They've been limiting exports. They've been doing domestic production, focusing on that primarily. And that is the long game right here. This is the long game, domestic production, because countries, globalization is not going to last forever. And countries are going to eventually start looking for their own self-interest. So being a step of the game and starting to develop from within is a very important part right now of understanding where you have to be in the world, because eventually you can't always be relying on support for exports into other nations. Like, you got to be able to have something as a backbone to support yourself without the support of others. And that's why Canada right now is completely on the other side of the spectrum. They have very little infrastructure development. The economy is so reliant on real estate. It's a genuine problem, and it's good to see that domestic development actually clearly has its benefits, and the U.S. is showing that very well. And the last story of the day, Comcast is in talks to sell its 30% stake in Hulu to Disney. So, of course, this isn't really a big story. It's Comcast, and it's only 30% of the stake, but of course, it's millions and millions of dollars. But it was interesting to me because Disney's been buying off a lot of things as of late. They've been buying just companies left and right. They're investing so much into the media and taking over other media companies. It comes to, like, how much are they going to own eventually? Because Disney, I feel like, is going to be dominant. Because if we look at the theory of capitalism, it becomes very homogenous, and that it shrinks to one owner becomes to accumulate everything. A capitalist accumulates more and more, and the more that a capitalist accumulates, the competition narrows because he has more and more, and eventually they will have the majority and then keep growing until the limit we don't know yet. This has never been done to this extent before. But what I found interesting is that Disney is doing that pretty blatantly right now, and they're developing, they're buying out things, they're growing, and at what pace? Because they're getting bigger, and they're getting more, their net worth is only growing. So at that point, at which point does it stop? This is coming off the acquisition of Fox that was actually acquired. It was reported 1 month ago, $71.3 billion Fox acquisition. The goal of the enormous deal is to help Disney position itself for a streaming-centric future. The company has already taken a step in that direction with ESPN Plus streaming service and has plans to launch another service called Disney Plus later this year, which will include new shows based on the Star Wars and Marvel universes. So, as we know, superhero movies are really big. Sports is also big. They're combining everything. Their audiences are spread across all demographics in terms of entertainment. It's going to be very interesting to see how far they will go and how much they will eventually get, because it seems that they're a train I don't know if it's going to stop, and does it have to be stopped is the question in capitalism, because that is a natural progression of capitalism, and I don't necessarily think that we have the power to stop something from being acquired if they have the appropriate means to do so in a free market. Given how free the market is, which is a discussion for another video. Alright, anyway, thank you all for watching. Once again, if you enjoyed it, drop a like, drop a sub on the video, and look out for more content, because I'm trying to do these every day, 5 days a week, I believe, is the plan at the moment. Alright, peace out.